Hello and welcome to Math World. Today we're going to talk about ratios. Now ratios are really important in pre-algebra because they get us ready for algebra. In algebra we're going to constantly be comparing two quantities, and that's what a ratio is. It's just the comparison of two quantities. Quantities is a number of things. So let's use an example like boys versus girls. This is a pretty simple example. Now let's say we had a class that had 45 girls in it and 15 boys. A little lopsided, but it's okay. Alright, so now the ratio you could say would be there's 45 girls and 15 boys. We can write this two different ways. We can write this as a part to part, meaning the two parts that make up a whole amount. We would say 45 girls to 15 boys. Part to part meaning they're equal parts. Girls and boys are each a part of the students. Now the other way to write this would be part to whole. Part to whole means write each part as a comparison to the total number of students. So we could say 45 girls compared to, what's 45 plus 15? 60 students. So there's part to whole. And we can actually write part to whole two different ways. We could write it girls to students, or we could write 15 boys to 60 students. So the first thing about ratios is you can see them as part to part or part to whole. Part to part, boys and girls, or part to whole, girls versus students, boys versus students. Alright, now let's see the three different ways we can show ratios. We can show them with words, which we kind of just did that up here. We said 45 girls to 60 students, or 15 boys to 60 students. We said 45 girls to 15 boys. So there is how you write it in words. And we'll see this in word problems when they actually just tell us how many quantities there are of each. Now if we want to write this with a colon, we can also say that there are 45 girls, colon, 15 boys. Or it's simpler, 45 to 15. There's a ratio shown with a colon. That's a little double dot here. And lastly, my favorite way to show ratios is a fraction. 45 girls compared to 15 boys. And there it is as a fraction. We can say 45 over 15. Three different ways to show ratios: words, colon, fractions. Alright, now that we know how to write ratios, how do we use the ratio? Well, the most common way to use a ratio is to find its unit rate. The unit rate is the rate per one quantity. Can we find out how much of something we have per one of something else? Well, let's look at those 45 girls compared to the 15 boys. Alright, now to turn this into a rate per one, we want to make the bottom number per one. So to make 15 one, we would just divide by 15. 15 divided by 15 is 1 boy. And if we divide the bottom, we have to also divide the top to make it still equal. 45 divided by 15 is 3. So the unit rate would be 3 girls per every 1 boy. Pretty simple so far. I could do this the other way around too, and I could say, what about the unit rate for boys compared to girls? However, we're going to get something less than 1, won't we? What's 45 divided by 45? Well, there's the 1 girl that I want to make my unit rate. But then 15 divided by 45 actually gives us 0.3. So there's actually only a third of a boy per 1 girl. And that makes sense because there's less boys than girls. Alright, so there's unit rate. Now let's see it again in probably the most common way we're going to see it, and that's prices for things. What if you could buy 3 bags of chips for $15? Alright, so there is our ratio. 3 chips for $15. Let's write this as a fraction and say $15 for 3 chips. Now I'm putting chips on the bottom because that's the one I want to figure out per one. I want to figure out how much one bag of chips is. Well, I'll do the same thing I did over here. Divide by the denominator. Divide by the one you want to find per one. 3 divided by 3 gives us 1 chip. And 15 divided by 3 gives us $5. We now have a ratio of $5 for 1 chip using unit rate. Unit rate is per 1. And we're going to use this skill for a couple different things, and we're going to use unit rates for different things in the class. But there's the intro. Ratios is just a comparison of two things, shown as a part to part or a part to whole. We can write it 3 different ways: words, the colon, fraction. And we're going to figure out the unit rate, the rate of a quantity per one of the other. Well, that's it, and I'll see you in class. Now for a word from our sponsor, Papercut Games. This week's game, Hive. Now Hive is called the new chess. It's called that because it's a 2-player abstract game in which each player is going to get these little pieces that are actually bugs instead of chess pieces. And you'll see that they're different types of bugs, like a grasshopper, or an ant, or a beetle. But your main one, or your king, is the queen bee. Now the way the game works is that each player is going to take turns putting their pieces onto the board. So you don't start with anything. So you put a piece onto the board, and they take turns. And the goal of the game is to surround the other person's queen bee. If you can surround their queen bee, you've won. Now this gets a little tougher to surround their queen bee because once the pieces are on the board, they can move. And just like in chess, they move different ways depending on what piece they are. The spider can move 3 spaces. The ant can move any space on the outside. The beetle can actually jump on top of pieces. The grasshopper can actually jump over pieces. And so you'll see there's different ways that the pieces can move, and the goal is to get the queen surrounded. And once someone's queen is surrounded, the game's over. So if you like chess, check out Hive. Pretty cool theme.